Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of All the Talk, All the Sports podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing sports returns with some special guest hosts, Eli Hauser and Caden Kline, here to help me out today and answer some questions. Our first ever live recording with actual guest hosts talking. To start, how are you guys both handling this whole situation with no sports going on right now currently?
Well, for me, it's been very difficult because my life is kind of surrounded by sports, and I think it's been a lot of just chilling around, playing a lot of sports games, and trying to get myself involved in sports as much as I can. Looking up all different types of news around sports, watching the draft, being surrounded by the draft, and just kind of praying and hoping that sports comes back anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely the draft was a big one. I know a lot of people in our friend group, we were all talking about it. During the draft, all the good picks, that was something very fun. We actually have a NASCAR race coming this Sunday, May 17th, so that'll be a sports return. Not sure how many fans are into NASCAR, but Eli, how are you handling no sports right now?
I've been spending a lot of time with family, and just to actually have sports in my life, I just go on YouTube and watch any full games I can. And then, video games help, but they can only get you so far.
Yeah. So, Caden, for the first question that we have to start this off, when do you see sports returning, in general, just every sport returning, what month, what time of the year, all that good stuff? When can you see games actually being played?
Well, for baseball and MLB, I could see that a little bit before every other sport. I think baseball is trying to come back in July. For the football, well, since the season doesn't start later, I don't really know yet. It could start on time. I'm not really sure. For basketball, I think they're going to wait a little bit longer. I probably could see a September return, maybe late August. That's what I see.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think MLB is going to be the first to start. A lot of questions roaming around with the winter sports. Are they going to return? What's going to go on with that? So, Eli, next for you, when can you see fans in the stands actually returning to games, watching games in person? Because I know the fans bring a lot of the energy to the games, but when can you see them actually coming back due to the social distancing guidelines? When can you see them returning into the stands?
Well, for football, I think they should start on time, but they're saying there might be a second wave of the whole virus, so I think the fans will come back. The fans will start the season, they'll be fine in the stands, but later in the season, if they have to stop and take them out, that might happen. And for NBA, I think it'll come back and it'll resume in July, and everything will be fine because they can finish the season by if there is a second wave. Baseball, I think that will be the easiest to get fans back in the stands, just because there's not much. There's still interaction, but there's not as much as in football. And I don't really follow hockey, so I couldn't tell you that one.
Yeah, because I agree with 100%. They also have to take in consideration, I know, you guys got to think, NBA and NHL are inside, while the MLB and NFL are outside, so that outside gives a lot of extra reason that fans could return into the stands a little bit earlier. I forget what country it was. I think it was Taiwan. They're actually limiting the amount of fans in the stands to their baseball games, so they're in the right steps. Baseball is open in different countries, Korea, Taiwan, Japan, so that's a huge thing. When will fans return to the stands? That's one of the bigger questions. I don't see them returning to the stands for the next. I think that the earliest it'll be for football in September. So moving into our first specific sport, the MLB came up with a plan. They handed it to the Players Union, And it was a plan where they would play 82 games, try to get as many home games in as possible for each team. No fans in the stands. I also saw that they were banning sunflower seeds from the players on the field and the dugout. I know in the Korean League you're not allowed to spit on the field, and every excess staff member that's not a player, coach, or an umpire has to wear a mask and gloves. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with that in the MLB. But for Caden, do you think that the Players Union will pass the MLB's proposal, because the players are ultimately the one playing and putting themselves at risk the most? So do you think the players are going to agree to pass the MLB's proposal?
For me, I'm hoping they do, but unfortunately, I don't think they will, because there's so many. It's based on like the governor and what his decision ultimately is, if they can even play in their state. And I know that some governors will and some governors won't. And so for like the Philadelphia Phillies, if Governor Wolf doesn't allow them to play in Philadelphia, they'll have to play in another state. And I don't think that some players will agree with that, and some players won't agree with like the division setup and all of that ultimately. So I don't think they will pass it.
Yeah, that's also an interesting topic, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to the players' safety and the players' health. So, I agree. I think that I honestly think they might pass it, because they just want to play. But another question is, it's not really a question for you guys, but that the league has to ask themselves is, how will their salaries work? How will they be getting paid? Like, will there be cuts in their salaries? That's another big question. Even if this does get passed, I think there's a lot of kinks that have to be worked out for this to actually go through. Eli, what are your opinions on the MLB proposal to the players' unions? What do you like about it? Anything you would change? What do you dislike? Anything like that?
Well, I mean, I think they know that they have to get baseball back. So they're trying their best. I mean, I don't know if the players will necessarily agree, but I like the idea. I don't think the players will like it.
Yeah, I agree, because the MLB is losing money like crazy fast right now without this sport. So they really wanted to get this going. That's the ultimate decision. The players' union has to pass this for this to come into action. And the proposal also said that the season would start right around July 4th. Yeah, that's the biggest reason, is just the players' safety and health. I know I mentioned that before, but that's the biggest reason, because the MLB just wants their money back and they want to be making profits, but the players, at the end of the day, have to make the decision where this is going. So for the NHL, I'm not too fond. It's getting too late, in my opinion, for winter sports. Personally, for me, the NBA and the NHL to return this late. I know I'm not really a huge fan of both the winter sports that are played, but I just think it's too late. It'll be starting in July. Players need off-season rest, time to spend time with their families. They're getting that quality time now. But I just don't see that. I think they're going to want to return the NHL and the NBA. I think they will return, but in my personal opinion, I wouldn't want it to return, but that's only my personal opinion. But there's a lot of kinks to work out for the NHL to return. That's what our main topic is for this question. The NHL has been talking a lot, trying to pass games to play in North Dakota. Just ranks up there. Just a lot of talk. I think they could start in July if they do start, but I'm not 100% sure if they'll go through and finish the 2019-2020 season, or just play the playoffs. I'm not sure. I think they'll just head right into next year's season. So, Caden, I'm going to ask you, do you see the NBA returning this season? If so, what are the steps that they will have to take? What will the plan be for the NBA to return? And if not, why do you see them not returning?
Well, the NBA kind of ultimately started this with Rudy Gobert getting the coronavirus and Donovan Mitchell getting this whole virus thing. But I think that they will return. I kind of think that they will just hop right into the playoffs as not like jumping into the playoffs and not finishing the season, as much as that also sucks for the teams that are like 9th, 10th, like the Pelicans and stuff. They won't be able to make that playoff push. I think that the teams that are already in the playoffs will begin to play, and that's how the playoffs will be ran. I don't think that there will be any fans, and I think that that's how the playoffs would work, and that's how the NBA would return.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree that I think they would just go straight to the playoffs and just cut off any regular season interactions and games that they had left to play, because there were very few. If you look at the big picture of the season, not many games left to play. I think they just jump right into the playoffs. All right, Eli, let's talk about you here for a second. Do you think that the NFL will be affected? Do you think their 2020-2021 season will be affected? If so, how will they handle the situation? And if you do think they'll get postponed, why do you think that?
Well, I said it earlier. I think that we'll get a second wave of this, so I think they'll start on time. But I think about halfway through the season, the same thing's going to happen that the NBA had to go through, and they're going to have to deal with that. And practices, I think they're going to handle it the same way the NBA is going to handle it. I mean, it's the highest competition in the world. I mean, they got to do everything they can to bring it back.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of these leagues are just concerned about themselves losing all this money. They're losing fans because there's articles going around on the internet. How much is this going to change sports fans to them losing viewership, losing ticket sales, realizing, hey, this is not as big as an important aspect in my life as it should be? Like, that's how we were treating it before. So they really need to get sports back in their hands, and exactly what you said, Eli. The NFL has really been pushing to get the season started on time. They want fans in the stands. They really want just to be a normal 2020 season, just like last year's season. That's how the NFL wants to handle it. So moving into our last sport that we have to cover, college football, a big sport that people have grown to love over the past decade, a big time viewership there, climbing up the ranks with the NFL. They're handling it a little bit different than the NFL. They have the same exact time slot almost as the NFL with their season being played, and that matters. The only thing is, for the college football season that I see differing is that college football, their practices start in spring. They should be in spring training workouts, you could call it, working out all through the summer as a team and getting ready for that season. But right now, I don't see that happening. I think college football will be on task come 2020 in the fall. I know college football is probably one of my favorite sports to watch, so I really hope that fans are in the stands cheering. Football's on TV, everything's good. So, yeah, I think that the college football season will go on as planned, as the NFL is hoping to. Like I said before, the only thing that could change that is players not practicing, but that affects every team. It's not giving one team an advantage. So that will wrap up our episode for discussing the sports returns with Eli Hauser and Caden Kline. Thank you guys so much for joining on our first ever live talk show. Once sports gets up and running, we'll be definitely talking and having more of these shows with more people talking about everything about sports. And that will do it for this episode of All the Talk, All the Sports. Thank you for listening.